All right, welcome into the Boston Sports Beat. We are joined, as always, first off by Greg Bedard, and we're, of course, talking Patriots season opener, Mac Jones' debut, mixed bag. Everyone's had their bite at the apple by now. Mac was good. The game sucked. After a benefit of having a day to kind of let things marinate a little bit, Greg, I know what you wrote at Boston Sports Journal. Praise for Mac, coaches, and the overall game plan here. This was a game they absolutely just kind of gave away.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, John, I just thought that, look, we were supposedly this was an upgrade in quarterback, which it was. I mean, Mac played really well. Rough start with his first play, but other than that, I thought he played great. Spent a bunch of money in the offseason, new receivers, new tight ends, a lot of pieces on defense. Had a really good productive draft. Looked like, impact guys really early. And they go out there in a common opponent, a team that they beat soundly with Cam Newton in the opener last year, and a team that your quarterback, Mac Jones, was better than the other quarterback. And it all felt very 2020-ish to me. It felt exactly like if you just swapped out Mac Jones or Cam Newton for Mac Jones, like it would have been the same exact thing. It would have been a lot of the same output. I mean, I don't think Cam Newton comes close to winning that game. That's not what I'm saying, but I think you get my point, which is like they did a lot of business to end up in the same place in this offseason, and there's really no excuse for them to lose that game. Yeah. And I put a lot of it on the coaches. They were not ready to win that game. And I can't tell you which individual coaches. The defense wasn't good enough. I thought Josh McDaniels was a little conservative. Now, was that on the direction of Bill Belichick? I don't know. But is Bill Belichick too much the CEO coach now? And now he's got Matt Patricia in the Ernie Adams spot up in the coach's booth doing a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know. It all didn't look very good. Like, I don't want to hear any excuses about it. It was just a fumble. It's just a fumble. I mean, come on. Don't give me that. Like, are you telling me that if the Patriots score there, they're going to stop the Dolphins? They didn't stop them when it counted all day. And guess what? The Dolphins had 1st and 14 on their own 5 with 3.5 minutes left. You had 3 timeouts. You couldn't stop them. And so I don't want to hear anything about it was just a fumble. It wasn't just a fumble. If you think it was just a fumble, you're covering up what's wrong with this team, which is this is a losing team going back to the end of 2019. This is a losing team.
Well, and you wrote it over at BSJ. And again, everyone should head over there and subscribe. $39 a year, 11 cents a day. The best Boston sports coverage in town. But I mean, just going through the stats, first downs, 24-18, double the rate of third down conversions, nearly 400 yards to Miami's approximately 250, 74.4% of passes, Miami's 59%, the time of possession, 14 minutes more. That's a game you win by 2 scores going away. Easy. So my question to you is, what were they? I understand conservative with Mac maybe early to get the jitters out of the way and make sure the kid wasn't going to be overwhelmed by the moment. You had issues both offensively and defensively with the coaching, but what wasn't it very clear fairly early on that Mac was fine and you could do other things with him? I don't understand, and I'll go back a couple of plays. The last points the Patriots scored on that field goal where Mac misses that throw to Jacoby Myers out in the flat on third down. They had to settle for 3. Running on 1st and 2nd down there just seemed uber conservative. And it seemed like that was kind of what they were doing the whole game, is managing it, trying to keep it close, trying to not let things get away from them instead of trying to win it.
Yeah, I don't know what went into that. And of course, Bill Belichick isn't going to give us any answers worth of crap to really tell us what was going on. I'm sure he had his reasons, and I would be delighted to hear them. Like,
right.
We were in shambles on the offensive line. We lost. I didn't feel confident in Ramondre Stevenson after his fumble. We were down to 1 running back. We wanted to shorten the game, whatever. We're not that great at cornerback. We're just trying to shorten the game right now. Yeah. It's early on in the season. We're rotating a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of valid reasons that I would be delighted to hear from Bill Belichick, but he won't tell us. But at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, I think they were overly conservative all over the place. And here's the thing. When you play that way, when you say, all right, we're going to win a game, we're going to try to win a game 19-17. That's what we want. And you manage the game that way.
Yeah.
Like it's how many plays? They had 14 plays drives. The more you do that, the more you don't go for big plays and just score points, the more you increase your chances that crappy things are going to happen. And crappy things kept happening. And what they needed to do was, I remember when they got the interception, which was a terrible play by Tua. They get an interception. They had the ball at the 50, like 8.5 minutes left. And I'm like, take a shot. Like,
right.
put it up. Like, at that point, look, let's all be honest here. If Tom Brady was the quarterback here at the time, they would have gone up top. They would have scored. They would have gotten a stop on defense, probably a turnover, and then scored again, and they would have won going away.
Yeah, which we'd see exactly. That seemed like the old Patriots.
It's 2 years removed now, John.
And now
or even more, going back to Brady's last season. Like, that's so far gone ago. I don't even think we could talk about it anymore.
Right. Where the Patriots will do all the things necessary down the stretch to win, and what was seemingly a close game ends up a 2-score game because the other team pukes all over itself. This time, the complete reverse happened, and the Patriots are the ones who did it. And this felt exactly like the type of game they would have won and not deserved to win a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Let's end on a happy note. Again, Mac certainly passed his first test, but again, 24 hours later, and I know you haven't really dug deep into tape yet to see everything, so it's hard to say, but just relative to your expectations from everything you'd seen in the preseason and going in and what you thought Mac would be, was he about the same, a little better, a little worse, or a lot better, a lot worse?
About the same. It's going to go down.
That's what you expected him to be.
Yeah, pretty much. Look, if the Dolphins, if Jason McCourty doesn't make that great play down the middle of the field and the Patriots have a big play there, maybe we're looking at things a little bit differently.
Right.
Even the Myers throw on third down, I thought the throw was fine. I thought Myers should have caught it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but he was trying to put it in a spot where only his guy could catch it, and I thought he did. Jacoby Myers would probably want that one back, but I thought overall, yeah, I thought that Mac did a really good job. I thought he was as advertised. He outplayed Tua. He was the best NFL rookie on Sunday. He was probably the best quarterback in the division, Bills Mafia, and Josh Allen.
2019, Josh Allen reared his head.
Yeah, exactly. And I so that's really good. And I thought there were a couple moments being in the press box, John, where I was like, I literally said out loud, I was like, holy shit. Like, what kind of throw? The throw to White. The throw that got called back because of holding by Justin Herron, where he was moving all around and he threw off his back foot and led the guy. I forget who he threw it to, but it was just an outstanding throw. There was the third down throw, like past the sticks on like second and 15, or I don't know, something like that. That throw was just outstanding, and it had a bunch of heat going on a really tough throw for a quarterback. So, like, I think any answers or any questions anybody had, I think he really answered it. And now it's, how do they keep getting better and stop being so damn conservative?
And you'll see it too, again, when you're looking at things, but it looked like just at first glance, even a lot of the incompletions were balls where he had to throw it somewhere through to relatively covered receivers in places where really only they could where they could catch it. And it just, that if they get it, great. If not, you live with that incompletion, but he wasn't floating balls up there. He didn't have passes that should have been picked off. He might have missed a throw or two that wasn't exactly on the money, but overall, it looked like everything they asked him to do, he did. My final question is, do you think they could have done a lot more in this game with him and he would have been able to handle it? They could have split 4 out wide and let him operate in a bit of a hurry up, or just, put him in the shotgun and go.
Yeah, but the question is, John, well, first of all, with the Trent Brown injury,
with the protection,
protection. How much confidence did they have in that?
Right.
And that's related to. But could the other guys around Mac Jones be on the same level? Could Kendrick Bourne? Could Nelson Aguilar? Could the tight ends? Like, we know Jacoby Myers would be fine and be able to do that stuff. But those are the type of things that you have to balance. But they're going to have to balance it better. Like, they can't. They got to stop playing 1-score games. You invite in these plays, these penalties, these turnovers. Like, that's what you invite in when you play not to win. You oftentimes lose. And look, John, to bring it home, let's be honest here, okay? Since the end of 2019, when they faltered down the stretch, this team is now 9-15. Since then, since beating Dallas at the end of near the end of 2019. They're now 9-15, and that's just facts. And changing personnel, it was Brady, It was Newton. Now it's Mac Jones and company. Like, they changed a lot, and they're still losing. That's the bottom line.
All right. Well, this was supposed to end on a positive note, Greg, but we were trying
we
to
keep it real over here at PSJ.
know.
You know that.
The wet blanket all the way through.
Yeah.
Again, I still think if you're a Patriots fan, after you get over, and there's going to be that freak out, you at least have to look at it and say, and again, you said it in your piece. Look, they found a guy and he has the it factor. You don't know until 10 years from now how good that it is going to be, but you can at least take solace in the fact that the Patriots have an actual NFL quarterback, which is something you couldn't say at this point last year. All righty, let's talk hoops, and no one better to talk hoops with than our man, Sherrod Blakley. What's up, Sherrod?
What's going on, Jay-Z?
Nothing. We're scraping, we're scrounging, we're looking for things to talk about as the Celtics season is soon to get underway. We expect training camps to open later this month, and then we're off and running. Until then, let's play the fun speculation game.
Yes.
A ton of talk about Bradley Beal. He's been the area of focus, and again, the roster is set, nothing changes, but everyone's always looking for that big fish, the bigger and better thing. It's always been Beal. He's always been the target, his connection to Tatum. But our friend Gary Washburn over at the Boston Globe threw a name out there. And again, this isn't a sourced report, and we're not trying to be clicky or throw hot takes out there. It's just informed speculation. A guy who could make sense, and it's an interesting one to talk about, is Jayson Tatum's Olympic teammate, Zach Lavine, the Chicago Bulls. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to want a max deal, and might be someone they might look at if the Beal thing doesn't come through and they can't find any way to make Beal happen. Again, we're going to see what happens if Beal signs his super duper ultra max deal with Washington and how that's going to affect things as well. So it's an interesting name. It's fun to kick around. Your thoughts on Lavine and his fit with the Celtics, since they're definitely going to sign him next year?
Well, it's interesting. I want to slip that in. Glad I'm paying attention.
Since he's definitely coming.
Absolutely, he'll be here. I'll be the one picking him up at the airport and everything. No sweat. No, the thing about Zach Lavine that I like is how his game has evolved. I mean, he came into the league as basically a one-dimensional shot chucker who really was all about getting his points. And he has kind of evolved to being a little bit more of a two-way type of player. Isn't quite there yet, but certainly is trending in that direction. You look at his numbers. His numbers aren't that different from Tatum's. He averaged better than 27 points a game last season, shot better than 41% from three-point range, which I was really surprised.
His splits are unreal. He was almost a 50-40 yeah, I mean, he shot. I mean, he was outrageously efficient last year.
Yeah, and if you're Brad Stevens loves as many highly efficient players as possible. Any coach would love that type of player, but obviously there's a certain amount of salary cap gymnastics that the Celtics would have to do in order to get something done, even next offseason. But it makes a lot of sense because one of the things that Danny Ainge talked all the time about, and Brad Stevens to a certain extent has as well, is if there's a good player out there and they're available, we have to do our due diligence and see if there's a way that we can at least explore the possibility of getting something done. And Zach Lavine makes a lot of sense when you look at his age, you look at his talent, you look at his ability, and you look at the direction that his overall game is going as someone that, if you're the Boston Celtics, at a minimum, you got to kick the tires around and see if there's something there.
Yeah, and I like him, and I actually like the fit here better than Beal. If that were something they would consider, and it was 51-42, and it was 85% free throw. So again, almost that 50-40-90, which is not a lot of people can get to that plateau. And he was almost there last year. A really, really outstanding year. Kind of went under the radar just because of who he plays for. So again, speculation, just something Gary threw out there, but an interesting name to consider as you start to think and wonder, is there another star coming? Is there another shoe to drop at some point or another? But certainly nothing that's going to affect this season. Something that will affect this season, Jayson Tatum and his muscles, his big,
Jayson Tatum.
So you and I did we talked about this a couple weeks ago when those IG pictures came out. We did catch up with Tatum at a basketball camp this past weekend, and got to look up close and personal and asked him a little bit about his added muscle and how it's going to impact his game. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped. Tough. I know people want to see me go to the basket more. I like shooting step back jumpers. Compromise. I do it to people.
So there you have it, Sherrod. He's going to give the people what they want. It's the people. It's the
about
people.
the people.
Yeah, it's the people who insist he goes to the basket. It's not analytics. It's not that shots at the rim and free throws are a more efficient way to get buckets than contested twos, which he likes. And we know he likes them. It's getting to the basket. And you do want to see him get there more. I think later in the year and certainly in the playoffs, he was more aggressive. That's just something you want to see all the time. And we talked about the impact it would have on his game. I'm not trying to stir anything here, but you get the feeling he kind of would rather just be that guy who just gets to shoot fallaways because, it's hard. It's a lot. That's a hard living going to the basket and getting knocked around and all that, But that's for youngins, though, and he's young. You're supposed to do that now. When you get a little bit older, you start to settle for those jumpers, Carmelo style. But you got to work for your buckets now. And I think it's only going to take his game to the next level if he does.
Yeah, but the one thing he's already figured out already is that the longer I kick that tomato can down the road, the more I'm going to actually preserve my body and not get my ass kicked every single night from a physical standpoint, because going to the basket is hard. I look at guys like Russell Westbrook, who has just made a killing doing that type of thing night in, night out. And you wonder when he's going to fall.
Miles on the tires. It's hard. Yeah.
It is. And so I totally get Tatum's like, I'm going to give the people what they want because I really don't want to go out there and just get beat up night in, night out going to the basket. But Tatum understands in the back of his mind, he may not admit it, but you have to make a certain level of sacrifice for success. And going to the basket as the best player on this team, that's part of the deal. When you're the best player on the team, you got to give the team what they need. And forget about what the fans, what they want. Give the team what they need. That's what I want Jayson Tatum to do.
And again, it's essential. And I don't want to get all analytics, but again, it's threes and shots at the rim are obviously, it makes sense. That's what you want to focus on doing. And those step backs, they're great when the shot clock is winding down and you need a bucket. And you got to have guys like Tatum who can do that. And he's as good at it as anybody, but that can't be your A1A, what you're looking for every single time down the court. You got to find a way to get easier buckets. So I think it's nice that he's going to grudgingly embrace that role this year. We'll see if it translates once the season begins. We've also seen Ben Simmons shoot threes in the preseason, and that how did that come out? Right? How did that come out? Sherrod, thanks a lot, man.
No problem.
All right, on to the Bruins. Conor Ryan from Boston Sports Journal is here, and Conor was down checking out captain's practices on Monday. Training camp for the Bruins starts next week, but you got to see actual Bruins doing actual hockey things today, Conor. Tell me what stood out to you, if anything, kind of here in day one of captain's practices.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good to see, about 30 players out there, a lot of NHL regulars, but I think maybe the most encouraging thing in terms of what stood out there was a younger player who hasn't really kind of proven himself in Jack Studnicka, and it's going to be a very interesting year for him. You looked at last season and the promise that he had of potentially stepping into a legitimate center role there, whether it be on the third line or what have you. Didn't really work out last year, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that he just wasn't built for NHL hockey at that point. I mean, he entered last year, I think, weighing about 175 pounds. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't, tack on some good healthy weight, you're not going to get into that grade A ice. You're not going to get those quality scoring chances if you haven't tacked on that muscle. So this offseason certainly seems like he's learned from that. He's primarily been in Foxborough, actually working out for most of the summer. And you always hear the reports, and again, we've talked about this before, that we're at the part of the preseason where everyone's in the best shape of their lives. And, you always have to kind of take that a little bit with a grain of salt.
Everybody looks awesome. Everyone's an all-star.
Everyone's great. 70 points. He's gonna contend for a scoring title this year. But just from the basic eye test of what you see from Jack Studnicka, again, he's not all of a sudden Nick Ritchie out there, right? He hasn't gained 50 pounds, but it looks like he's added on a lot of good, healthy weight. He was bringing the puck into grade A ice, moving the puck with authority. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of that, of just adding on some muscle. And that's the difference between getting knocked off the puck and all of a sudden you're regaining the puck in the offensive blue line, or you're down in grade A ice generating chances. So it's going to be a big camp for him, but we'll see how it all maps out.
It's man strength at what it comes down to. They're kids when you bring them in here, and eventually they kind of start to get a little bit more solid, and it does make a huge difference for him. We'll see if it's enough of a difference to crack the lineup and to make an impact. And again, we talked about last week, Connor, we talked about the tremendous need for them to have some talent coming up the pipeline to replace guys who eventually are going to move on. One of those guys who already moved on, David Krejci. Again, the tragic irony of the Bruins season is they finally get Krejci some forwards to play with, and then Krejci goes bye-bye. But we did get to talk, you got a chance to talk to Craig Smith today about, and it's assumed that second line, it's assumed it's going to be Coyle with Smith and Hall. What's funny is the more secure players on that line are probably Smith and Hall, and the TBD center. Right now you're penciling in Coyle. Smith talked a little bit about playing with a new pivot this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, he mentioned that they're two very different players, David Krejci and Charlie Coyle. And, as much as David Krejci is more of one of those playmaking guys that likes to slow down the puck and dictate the pace, Coyle is very much more of a puck possession guy who, likes to bring it into grade A ice and hope that guys are open there. And even though Charlie Coyle may not be, the exact playmaker that a guy like David Krejci is, you kind of look at where the pieces fit and where a guy like Craig Smith, who's, just a straight shooter, the guy will shoot from like a 90-degree angle out there. You can kind of look at where he fits and how he meshes with a guy like Charlie Coyle. And you can kind of see the recipe for success there if it all works out. Again, it's a big ask for Charlie Coyle to all of a sudden just be inserted in there. And all of a sudden he's a guy who's driving that second line. I think a lot of it's going to fall on guys like Taylor Hall and Craig Smith to really generate that offense and kind of push him along, especially at the start here. But from what Craig Smith said, again, we're at the cherry part of the preseason where everyone's just excited to get out there. But he seems encouraged by how those pieces can kind of fall into place with how he could mesh with a guy like Charlie Coyle in the middle.
Yeah, and we all know it's going to be Krejci by March anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
You're spoiling it. Yeah,
just biding our time.